Hey, we have to apologize about that. We're having a little technical difficulties here at the DPB show. Obviously, things happen. And as I shared with you the last time I was here, we had a special guest in studio and they were podcasting via Fox News. Or I should say, she was utilizing my studio to be on Fox News. So she was using my podcast studio and they changed the camera. So if it looks a little different today, that's because I'm going with what we have. We can't waste time. That's obviously the mode we're in. We see that to be the case. And so we'll just go through the motions here with the old format. I got so used to looking up here into the camera that is above my laptop, but that no longer is there. So I will probably spend more time with my eyes down here in this camera. So, hey, I appreciate y'all. For those that will start joining, obviously we didn't hit the 4 o'clock hour, and I know that's important, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time belaboring everything that's going on because we know there is so much out there in the news cycle right now, especially with Donald Trump just a landslide victory in Iowa in the caucus and carried 99 counties. And now I did hear reports from Kat Peterson that she said that it was 98 because Johnson County ended up going to Nikki Haley. I was still of the understanding that it was 99 counties. So either way, 98, 99 counties, an amazing victory for Donald J. Trump. And the news cycle is going to continue just to blow up based on the reaction by the propaganda media on trying to figure out what's next. They now have seen that they're not slowing him down one bit. No matter what they're throwing at him, he continues to show the resilience of making America great again and continuing to just the Trump train, right? That's what it is. How do you stop the Trump train? And I don't think there is any stopping the Trump train. We do have a guest today, and she is one of my favorite people that has entered politics here in the last couple of years. I have gotten to know her. She is running for state representative of the 88th district. Her name is Regan Deering. You might remember her name because she actually she ran. She had a candidacy in the primary of 2022 in the 13th Congressional District of Illinois. She came out of that primary, she won it, and she had an opponent, a Democratic opponent in Nikki Baczynski, who is currently the Congresswoman of the 13th District. Regan Deering is now, after that, she ran for school board, was able to win that election, and then decided that she wanted more. She wanted to get involved in state government to continue her plight of restoring Illinois and restoring America. And she is now running for the 88th district. I'm going to bring her on camera. Regan, it is good to see you there. Look at that. I was able to do that. Regan, I can navigate this thing a little bit. Thank you, Regan, for joining us today.
You bet. Appreciate it. I'm excited about your new podcast and your followers joining you here on this platform. So happy to be here.
Well, it does build through the show, which is kind of cool. And we always encourage people to go out, like, subscribe, because we are on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Rumble. And it's building every week, and it continues to, when we go out there and we analyze, what is happening out there in the DPB show world of viewership, it is building. It's, like anything, it's step by step, right? It's no different than a campaign. It'd be great if you could just come in and arrive at the end of the game without ever playing the game.
Well, we all know the work is necessary.
It is. Well, I'm not going to belabor what we're here to talk about today. Obviously, you've got a big race ahead of you. The early voting will start here in early February, which is like closing in quickly. Then our March 19th primary here in Illinois, and you are on the ballot, and you're continuing to get out there and campaign and let the people know of the 4 different counties: Piatt, DeWitt, Macon, and McLean, that you are the candidate for state representative, the state representative district, the 88th district. Tell us a little bit about your campaign. Tell us how you're different from your opponent, who is also a gentleman who is currently sitting on the McLean County Board, and we're going to talk a little bit about that here shortly. His name is Chuck Erickson. So what differentiates you and Chuck, and why is it that you believe you're the ideal candidate for the 80th district?
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself to some of your viewers and listeners that maybe I haven't had the chance to meet yet. Regan Deering from Decatur. My husband, Brian, and I have been creating a life here in Central Illinois over the last 20 years, working, raising our 3 pretty great teenagers most days, and, getting involved in our community. And so we love it here. Central Illinois is our home. We have family, we have friends, we have businesses, and the Illinois we love is slipping away. And I think everyday people and citizens are tired of government that's not working for them, myself included. I'm a homeowner, I'm a taxpayer, I'm a former small business owner. So we have felt sort of the burden of bad Illinois policies in a lot of ways. And so I decided that I wanted to stand up and try and make a difference. I think the government is meant to be of, by, and for the people. So anyone can put their name on the ballot and fight for what they believe in. So here I am. I was trained as an educator. I have my degree in biology, and I went on to have a master's in education. So I became a science teacher for a number of years. After having our first kiddo, we moved back to Central Illinois, and I opened a business. So I owned a franchise for a tutoring company, so helping educate students outside the classroom. Had a great opportunity to create about 100 part-time jobs in Central Illinois between Decatur and Springfield at the time through this public school system, and really just enjoyed bringing that service to Decatur. My franchise agreement ended after 10 years. So I had all my kids in school at that point and decided to make some connections in my community and start to do some community service work. I'm a problem solver by nature. And so I found myself working for a few different organizations. Primarily, most of my time and energy went to a nonprofit here in Decatur that serves as a social service agency, a food pantry for the greatest part of their impact, but also allowing families that were looking for more of a hand up instead of a handout. So some financial resources to help with utility bills or rent and mortgage payments or back to work clothes, transportation, any number of things. We're a Christian-based organization, and so we really pride ourselves on being able to be yes. I think a lot of government programs come with strings attached, and the government giveth and the government taketh away. So we are really honored to stand in the gap there and help raise up low-income families in our community. So I still serve as the board president for that organization today, but just want to be able to help where I can and continue to see our community's economy thrive and succeed. When all of us do well, our communities are served best. So I really didn't go looking for a career in politics. You did mention that I ran for the Republican nomination in the 13th Congressional District, thanks to 2020's very badly gerrymandered maps. My Congressman Rodney Davis was mapped in against Mary Miller, so put 2 Republicans in together, leaving the 13th district as an open seat. So I recognized that I felt like I had a lot to contribute. I find myself really in all walks of life trying to create the greatest outcomes. And that means getting the right people around the table, leaning on experts, recognizing that I can't be an expert in everything, but knowing relationships are key to continuing those conversations and getting those good outcomes. So I thought I had quite a bit to offer. I won a competitive 4-way primary for the nomination. That was a little bit interesting coming out of COVID. We had a June primary instead of March. which led us sort of a much shorter runway to that general election. But being a candidate, people always say, wow, you really signed up for that. You're a lot of everywhere, you're on the road, you're meeting people. I thoroughly, honestly enjoyed the process. For all the doom and gloom we talk about in Illinois, high taxes and rising crime and poor public education, there are great people here. We have great industry, we have great agriculture, we have a lot of faithful, God-fearing citizens and constitutionalists, and they want to celebrate what they're doing well. We want to stay here. We want to talk about the great things that are happening here, and we need to create a greater impact on the government input into our daily lives. So I thoroughly enjoyed being on the campaign trail. I learned so very much. I think that losing was tough. You pour your heart and your soul into it, but I was graceful in my defeat and recognized that I had a passion for representing people, and I wanted to stay engaged. So I did run for my local school board. I have 2 girls in public school, one in high school and one in junior high. So it was important to me, being on the front lines of education, seeing what is creeping into our public school buildings. And I personally sued the governor over his unconstitutional mask mandate. I was showing up at my school board meetings. I said, I feel like I have a little badge of honor that is parent terrorist. Speaking up at my school board meetings, taking that biology degree and putting it to good use, and talking about the data and talking about the impact that it was having on our children. And I applauded my district for being in-person learning, but the second year of masks, I just knew was doing more harm than good. So I led that charge in my school district, and it really brought me to tears actually when we won, because I thought 800 families, just were in it for the right reasons and knew what was best for their children. And we defeated big government. JB Brisker has a blank checkbook, and he said, bring it on. And we did. And I give a lot of credit to these families and Tom DeVore as, the lead lawyer, who stayed in that fight and really gave us a lot of relief. And I just think that we, the people, have to rise up. We have to continue to rise up. We have to push back and stand firm in what we know to be right. And, government is a place that seems scary, but we can do it. And so that's why I find myself here today. I want people to know that the same fight I have for my family, I will advocate for, people all across Illinois. These maps, the 88th district has its boundaries, and I meet people just inside or just outside the district map. But, I always say, maybe you can't vote for me at the ballot box, but when I go to Springfield, I'm going to vote for you, and I'm going to keep those conservative values and those common sense policies at the forefront of my work.
Well, and obviously so much that was said, and I so appreciate what you're doing for the community there in Macon County and in the surrounding area. We have a similar organization here called Abundant Life, Abundant Thrift, locally, that specializes in helping the marginalized, the semi-homeless people. Obviously, great concern, especially right now with the weather definitely taking a turn to the colder side of things, and how those people exist and survive during a season like this. Your heart goes out, obviously. So good for you. And that's what we're about, right? I believe that most people who wear the badge of conservatism, I could hardly say that. See, I'm a little behind. The cold must have gotten me today. I feel a little frostbitten.
Your lips are numb.
I came into studio. I thought I'd had time to warm up, and then we had the technical difficulties. So I'm still trying to get there. But we as conservatives get a bad rap that those are things that we don't care about, whether it would be the immigration crisis that's going on right now, and obviously is impacting the state of Illinois at a level that we have our governor pleading with the governor of Texas to no mas, no more. Stop sending immigrants to Chicago, we don't have the ability to take care of them, to house them, to basically find accommodations in any form. And so that's probably one of the biggest things. I realized that coming out of the caucus yesterday, that it's the economy and it's immigration. Really, if there's two issues that I think we're going to face, not only as Illinoisans, as a state rep, but as Americans, is the economy. Obviously, we know where Illinois' economy is, contrary to what Governor Pritzker says. He tries to definitely put lipstick on something that is not very pretty. And then immigration. And why? Why is there such a need for the Democrats to just openly allow so many people into this country? What is their long game when it comes to that? I've talked about the replacement theory. I mean, there are congressional leaders, there are Congress people who openly come out and say, yeah, we need more people in our district because we're losing population. Obviously, the state of Illinois went from 18 Congress people to 17. And at the current rate, it looks like, as far as according to Illinois policy, wire points, you see that we're continuing to lose population in Illinois here from 2020, since the last census, to the current date. And so we've got a lot of big problems ahead of us. I mean, granted, it doesn't matter if you're a super minority or a super majority. Those are still the problems you have to deal with.
Yeah, and you touched on so many things. I think really the caucus yesterday did paint that picture. Primarily, I think the economy is always top of mind for folks. And today, more than ever, when you think about the last 3 years under this Biden presidency, we can have back and forth about inflation, and now it's, steadying and it's recovering. But at the end of the day, people see it as, it's costing me more to put gas in the pump. It's costing me more at the grocery store. My rent is going up. The interest rates are going up. I'm going to have to put everything on credit. And it's not a lifestyle that many are able to manage right now. I mean, we're diminishing the middle class at a terrifying rate. And it seems like it's all part of the grand plan, to move people on to government assistance. I mean, we have a terrible housing market right now. The inventory is next to nothing. If you're a young person and you want to try and be a homeowner, I mean, I think I was reading an article that you have to average $120,000 a year just to get by, between a mortgage payment and a car payment and possibly a student loan payment and utilities and food and groceries. And God forbid you want to have some fun. You've just left with a couple $100 a month. And that's if you don't have children.
Yeah.
And so, the economy is going to continue to be the number one issue, regardless of what this administration, whether that's, Biden or Pritzker, is trying to paint. Families are struggling, and it's not getting any better, and they're not getting any relief. And when we have, that combined with an immigration problem at the border, it's just unsustainable. The number of tens of thousands of people that are pouring across our border, regardless of where they're going, is just unsustainable in our country. And they are coming here to Illinois. I was talking about this 2 years ago on the congressional trail, and most of the commentary was, "Oh, we're in Illinois. We're not Texas. We're not Arizona. We're not Florida." And I said, it's going to come here. There is going to be a breaking point, and now here we are. And the governor is yielding unrelenting power of spending our tax dollars as he sees fit. I just spent the morning talking with a group of care providers for assisted living facilities, and the money that he's taking from HHS to put towards migrants. I mean, the legislature gave him this ability. I literally got in front of a legislator last night. I said, what were we doing when we moved from 4% of those sort of fungible dollars to now 8%? I mean, we've seen the governor's, budgeting, and it's usually not good, and it's not good for the taxpayer. And now it's coming home to roost. And
They're
I have had a
projecting what,
lot.
55 billion is going to be this current budget going into this new session. Is that what they're going to be looking at? Is that the number that I heard? 55 billion. Last year it was, 51, just over 50 billion. And, 6 years ago, it was 34 billion.
It's unbelievable. I mean, we obviously don't have a balanced budget. I mean, we have a pension crisis, we have a debt crisis. I mean, in so many other ways, and our priorities just seem to be all wrong. And that is probably the most frustrating part to everyday people. But the fact that this administration has put all Americans in a position where you are trying to balance your compassion and your
Mhm.
humanity for those that are literally being encouraged to come here. I mean, we've all seen the interviews in Spanish where they say, "Oh, Biden says come."
Yeah.
And once they are here, we just do not have the resources, whether you be a small town in Texas or a large city in Chicago. And balancing that with, the rule of law and wanting to take care of our own citizens first and our communities with the limited resources that they do have. And it's just downright unfair. It's like most government, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And it's creating even more division, which I think you and I can agree is their goal. But at the end of the day, here in Illinois, we don't have any more resources. We don't have room. I literally talked to a gentleman that was sitting next to me at a snack bar from Chicago, and he lives downtown. And he said, when I go down my apartment and out through the lobby, there are up to 200 people on the sidewalk. He lives 2 blocks from one of those police stations. And he said they have limited hours of when they can be inside, and they're just hanging around.
And I think you're right. You hit upon the key to life. We should have compassion. We should be a people that wants to be loving, caring, and sharing towards others. But the conditions that are currently out there economically, I'm glad that you brought up the housing. My wife and I are out looking at houses right now, and I'm blown away by the cost of housing, the inflation. It's inflationary. Part of, I guess, the bigger strategy of imploding, if you really want to implode an economy. I'm not saying that they intentionally went out to do it, but it seems like that is what their goal is. You raise the prices of the cost of goods and services to the point that how can any household, withstand? Now, granted, my wife and I, yeah, we can weather it. We cut back. We make, amends to what we usually spend. We cut costs here. We limit things here, but we still, at the end of the day, we have the money. I can't even begin to understand what it must be like to come here as a immigrant, as a migrant. We had a gentleman on our morning show here a few months ago at Cities, and I picked him up on the corner. I actually stopped, asked him, if he was willing to come on, and sure enough, he reported that there was a big push, and he didn't quite say that, who it was that encouraged this group of people to get on the same flight out of Romania and come to Mexico City, where they deboarded the plane there and were quickly picked up by buses and told that the cost was $3,000 per family. $3,000 per family. And if you didn't have the 3,000, well, you were out of luck. You probably then were controlled by the cartel that was orchestrating this entire craziness at the border. So it's open, it's blatant. I think we know all of those things. And as you touched upon with the budget, the looming budget, the new budget for the state of Illinois, as we don't have a balanced budget. In fact, we haven't balanced a budget since 2001, and that is the facts. And they don't report it that way. But we are up against not only this immigration crisis that came to Chicago, but now it's going to come to a community near you. I think it's going to start slowly moving downstate from Chicago. I know there were reports from Grundy County. I know that their county board came out and put up a non-sanctuary status on their county, and were instructing their law enforcement, their county sheriff, to make sure that those buses that did come through their county were not going to offload their those members that, yeah, exactly, those immigrants. And
well, and I had a conversation with the chair of that county, just saying, what have you done? What have you been working on prior to this? Because I think those collar counties and those suburban counties could see how it was coming. I mean, there's a route that they're coming from, and they had previously talked, I think, through a voter a ballot initiative about what their county and what their people felt about sanctuary county status, kind of thing. And so it wasn't just kind of a flash in the pan. They had been working behind the scenes, and they had a Republican majority on their county board, so there was the ability to coalesce behind that and then get that passed. But it was specifically detailed to the buses. That I have had a conversation with my mayor here in Decatur. She's a Democrat, and I think she is someone that continues to kind of get the right people at the table, and do the behind the scenes work. I mean, it's not sexy and it's not pretty, but we need to be prepared instead of reacting when they do arrive. And so they had been having conversations with the sheriff. They'd been having conversations with the county board, which gave me peace of mind that those local officials could recognize the situation for what it was. She has a relationship with the governor, and I guess there is, an approved list of drop-off locations. So, was it directing the sheriff to continue the bus going on, or was it thinking about what we have here in Decatur as far as transportation from here? We have 2 truck stops. Talking through, okay, if we can't get there fast enough to actually continue the bus on and passengers are let off, what is that next transportation step for them? And I really think that is what is going to lead to the best outcome, is getting everybody around the table talking about what is your expertise, what laws do we have to abide by? I mean, we are a sanctuary state. I mean, the Trust Act passed by Rauner, has put a lot of these pieces of the puzzle in place. So some hands are tied, clearly, as to what legally can be done. Now, I'm all for local control, and I do think that, that's one avenue that we can take, but we've got to make sure that we, when we put something forward or we put it to our voters, that we are taking into consideration that balance between, compassionate care and humanizing the people that are here up against, our taxpayers and our citizens who, are really asking that we prioritize them first. I mean, we have a homeless population here in Decatur. We have low income families, those dollars would have to be redirected. We do have a number of generous citizens here in Decatur. It's one of the things we're known for here in Macon County. But they need a seat at the table too. Who is willing to help? Who, what organizations could have resources? But, the key to getting it done at any local level is really having those conversations first, and then putting forth what might be a better solution.
So the Macon County Board obviously had some foresight. The Grundy County Board, as probably many other boards with a little larger populations, where there are going to be resources for these immigrants who are being bused to Illinois. We just talked about the economy. Obviously, most families are stressed. They're strapped. They say no more. And yet now we're going to ask the citizens of Illinois, of each one of the counties within the 88th district, whether that be Piatt, Macon, DeWitt, or McLean, to bear the burden, possibly. We haven't seen it yet. Like I said, I've seen buses pass through our community. They go to the TJ Maxx, they go to the local Walmart, they deboard, and then suddenly out from the store comes the people that were on the bus with luggage and other types of items, probably personal care items, who knows. And they continue on their journey, but mostly to the north. That's where they thought the sanctuary was. Here in McLean County, last week, one of the board members, who happens to be your opponent in this 88th district race, Chuck Erickson, put forth a resolution. And it was a quick turnaround within a week. He put it before the executive committee. And that resolution was to start addressing the issues of what if this comes to our county. And of course, when it came to the full board, there was an opportunity for public comment, and there was many that stood up and in opposition to the resolution. And there were a few that put their comments out there that no, they want to start the process of trying to understand the what ifs, because they too are compassionate like most of us. We get it. It's a terrible situation. We need it to stop. We need it to stop at the southern border. There's a plethora of reasons why it is that they have opened the border from the federal level, and why they're unwilling to do anything about it. But still, that doesn't stop the compassion for the human condition. So that was voted down in opposition. That there was a 13-7 vote. There were 3 Republicans. It's our board in McLean County is a split board of 10-10, 10 Republicans, 10 Democrats. 3 Republicans joined the Democrats. They voted down the resolution. And so I guess that's kind of the thing that I want to talk about a little bit, Regan, is your opponent put forth that resolution and didn't build a consensus amongst at least the 10 Republicans. So at the end, when it was voted on, it didn't pass, but it didn't fail. And I don't know what the steps are after that. When you have what is a hung board, 10-10, where they haven't made a decision, I'm assuming that there's some process of tabling it and going forward. There's not a tie-breaking system with the board. But I guess that's my concern, is you have an opponent who has been on the board for 14 years. And I know there's a lot of campaigning back and forth about what your opponent has done and what he hasn't done. But we know that this one is right here, right now. He put forth a resolution without a game plan of walking it through or even getting it passed. So why do you believe, I mean, I'm not asking you to speak for Chuck Erickson, but why do you think that Chuck put forth that resolution?
Well, it is a top issue, as we saw come to fruition in the Iowa caucuses yesterday. I mean, I think some of the, way in and way out polling, as you mentioned, talked about the economy and inflation as a top issue, but immigration is right up there in those top 3. And so I do think it's top of mind. And, as Republicans, we are trying to impress in this primary season, in this election season, that we are hearing our constituents and that we are advocating for good policy. And I think that, based on our entire prior conversation, we both agree that, illegal immigrants coming downstate to our communities and to our cities is a concern. And so, bringing it up to the local level and kind of following these other counties that have taken that initiative was probably the right idea. But I think that if you're going to put forth a resolution, and to my understanding, it's not a binding resolution. I think there was commentary that, it wouldn't change any of the current funding. It would just sort of be an opinion of the board. You do need to get your team together and you do need to get your input and kind of hash it out for better or worse and talk about what the language is going to look like, what would make the most sense, what's going to pass, what takes all the factors into account. And, when you have people in your own party that have voted against your resolution, it just doesn't feel like there was enough preparation or, there was enough conversation about it beforehand.
Well, and one of the things, and once I heard what had happened, and I'm fully willing to call out the Republican members who did not vote to have the resolution, and that would be Chairperson Catherine Metzger, Susan Schaefer and Randy Knapp. And I'm going to hopefully maybe get them on the DPB show to talk a little bit about this, because the issue I think that we are confronting in Illinois as a Republican Party is that we don't have unity of message, unity of so many other things. And it saddens me that we believe that we're going to do the same thing over and over again and get different results. And this is one of the biggest confrontations I think we're going to eventually have to come to a head with. You know, it's nice on the federal level. We're seeing it played out with DeSantis, Haley, Vivek, and President Donald J. Trump, that they're going to resolve who is going to be the nominee. And unfortunately, I don't think we're getting resolution in Illinois, especially as we're losing ground in the assemblies. We talked about the fact that we have both a super minority in the Senate and the House. That's what you will be walking into in January of 2025 when you're sworn in. So how do we fix it? I mean, how do we get Republicans to march in Illinois to at least in the same band? I mean, we have different bands. I mean, how I see you as someone that could possibly be a person of influence that could encourage this unity. It's ironic that the first thing out of President Trump's mouth last night in accepting the victory in his victory speech was for unification.
Yeah, time to come together.
And we've got to do it. But we have been through cycle after cycle after cycle. I go back as far as 2010, and it just doesn't seem like we can get the Republican Party of Illinois, since we truly, going back all the way into the early 90s, when we had the majority in the House and in the Senate. And unfortunately, that's the last time we did.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple factors at play. One of them is the gerrymandered maps. In reality, voters in Illinois don't have much of a choice. You're in a very conservative district or you're in a very Democratic district, and there's very few moderate districts left. And I do think it's interesting, a huge percentage of Illinoisans are now self-identifying as independents. I think that they are tired of, the two-party rule and the extremes on both sides, and don't feel like anybody's listening to them. I mean, the independent voting bloc in 2022 and again in 2024 will need to be a target audience for Republicans. We're fall on the right side of most issues for them, but we need to start a conversation and we need to be listening as much as we need to be talking. And so I think the maps are really doing a disservice, not only to Illinois, but, all around the country. Obviously, we have a very Democratic leaning state. I mean, Texas will say, their maps are gerrymandered to favor Republicans too. But at the end of the day, we do want good governance and we want people to have their voices heard. I think in general, we have a lot more in common than we do apart. So the idea of unity is possible. I think that, as a party, we need to kind of go by that old adage, speak no ill will of fellow Republicans. I mean, we can disagree within our own party. We don't need to tear each other down per se, but try and talk about what we agree on or what are the differences and what's going to get us across the finish line to win. I mean, at the end of the day, we need more Republicans in the state house if we're going to get any legislation passed, have any influence. When you think about 102 counties in Illinois and the sea of red, we know that there are more conservatives in Illinois than there are Democrats as far as countywide. But, those population masses like a Cook County or a Champaign County or an East St. Louis, they just have the voters. And so, we've got to encourage Republicans to get out to vote. We have to encourage, kind of that sentiment that, just because you don't agree 100% doesn't mean that you're not going to stand behind your Republican platform and vote for the Republican. I mean, Donald Trump is a perfect example. His landslide, resounding win, I think I put in my Facebook post this morning, across all demographics. I mean, I tuned into CNN. It was hard. but I did it. And, watched them kind of break down. They just couldn't believe that college educated voters were pulling for Trump. And it's like, well, their pocketbooks are hurting. They're seeing what's coming across the border. I mean, they're not doing a good job of trying to advocate for themselves as far as the Biden administration. And, it's women, it's minorities, it's working class, it's college educated. And I think that those conservative values, I mean, it's no secret that Donald Trump has been blatantly forthcoming with his love for this country. And I can't think of someone that would continue to fight every single day through the sludge that's being thrown at him and the lawsuits and everything else. And, some people see it as arrogance. I think he sits back and says, well, what am I going to do? If I quit, who's going to follow behind me?
Then we give in, and then we give in and we give up. And I don't think that is what any of us want to do. We all feel frustrated at times, especially here in Illinois. And you did bring up something, and I thought it was interesting. We have Republicans, and I don't necessarily believe in speaking at will. I want to give every Republican an opportunity to defend their voting record. We have Republicans who sponsored bills. I believe there is accountability to the Republican platform, but we have Republicans who sponsor bills, co-sponsor bills with Democrats that involve making non-citizens law enforcement officers. And then you realize that was it a freshman mistake? Possibly. I don't know if Representative Tipsword would do that over again. I know that there were other representatives that voted alongside of him. There were only 8 Republicans that voted not for that, or didn't vote for that bill. And that's the part that I see us in the conservative branch of things. I fully support the Freedom Caucus here. I know that you're very friendly, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you plan on strongly giving consideration to being a Freedom Caucus member when you win. I guess the accountability, how do we, without disparaging another fellow Republican, how do we hold them accountable for what we believe as Republicans?
Mm-hmm. And
because it seems so inconsistent with it.
Yeah, and I did pick up the phone and call a few legislators that had made some votes that I didn't agree with. And in one instance, it was, a little bit of the understanding of how it goes into committee, and then it goes to the floor, and then it passes the House, and then it goes to the Senate, and then it comes back to the House. And some of that was a communication breakdown in there. I was thinking specifically of that bill, I believe that you were talking about, of becoming, police officers. And there was something added when it went back to the Senate. So the senators tended to vote it down, but then it wasn't communicated to the House before it went right back to them. So it's like, okay, we got to get our staffers, we got to take time, we got to, make sure that we're all on the same page between not only, the House and the Senate, but, amongst our own caucus and things. And other reasons are, I tried to read up some of the language on non-citizens enlisting in the military, and I did find some good information about they had to have a visa, or they had to meet other qualifications, and I think the numbers were in like the 80,000. I mean, it's not a small number that are currently non-citizens serving in our military. And so I don't think it's quite as black and white as we come out to be. And I think that may lead us into some of that, like, kind of just pure frustration. I mean, I know the Freedom Caucus has gotten a lot of that because there is the minutia to these bills, and there is vague language. And, it kind of goes back to people that stand for, like, wouldn't it be great if we could have single issue bills? Wouldn't be great. I heard, who was I listening to? Someone that was saying, one of their bill proposals is from the 8 to 8 rule. Like, we can only pass legislation between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. So there's no, dark of night shenanigans and people with one eye open, trying to understand the 400 pages of what need to be. But, when it comes to legislation about, for example, non-citizens performing in our military, I think most people want to believe that shouldn't be the case. When I think about the declining enrollment in our military right now, the Democrats and their radical policies have forced that issue. And then, of course, they come up with a solution that we don't agree with either, but we're forced to take. And I just think we've got to get back to kind of those conservative principles. As I said to someone earlier, it frustrates me that we even have to have a freedom caucus. If you're going to be a member of the Republican Party, you ought to be damn clear on what the Republican platform stands for, and you ought to defend it when you're in office.
Well, in the point you're making, if we didn't have a decline in our military enrollment, if we didn't have a decline in individuals seeking to be part of the law enforcement of the state of Illinois, if we didn't paint the picture of not backing the blue, of not supporting our law enforcement, there probably wouldn't be a need to seek avenues of other people to fill the roles that are part of what I believe most of us agree with. We want safe streets. Right. We want infrastructure in place. We want stoplights. We believe there is limited government should provide the basics. Police powers, that is part of it. I did notice that one of the commenters up here had a question. I want to get to that because he's a friend of mine. Christo asked, talking about immigration, can you ask what she thinks about the DACA recipients? I know that you probably have an opinion of that. I have an opinion. Didn't President Trump offer out to Nancy Pelosi twice as many DACA recipients to be granted citizenship than what she put forth? And as soon as he doubled down on the number she was requesting, suddenly that went away because I think she thought that she was putting him in a situation. I believe that there's plenty of people out there. I agree. We have an immigration system, and that's the system we have. Does it need to be overhauled? It's broken. Yes, and we need to fix it. But fixing it isn't opening up the southern border and allowing 8 to 10 million people free passage into this country. That's not what the immigration process is. As broken as it is, that's not our immigration process. So what are your thoughts on the DACA recipients?
Well, I appreciate the question, and I did, do a little more research into this when running for Congress, because obviously a federal issue and not a state issue. But Obama put the DACA program in place illegally. Took powers into his own hands, and we're seeing the fallout of, those who were brought here through no fault of their own. It was a program that was put in place and then passed through Congress, et cetera, and here we are. And I don't know how you just have people that have been here 20 years and all of a sudden say, well, sorry, you're here illegally. They have contributed to this country. They're sort of assimilated to this country, ideally for the most part. And so we do need to find a path for them. I do believe that is probably in our country's best interest. Now, to your point about a wide open border as we sit now, if we don't have borders and we don't have laws, we don't have a country. And therefore, I think we need to impress upon Congress, it's time now more than ever to find a solution to immigration. We've been talking about this for how many presidents and how many decades, and we get really close. To your point, I think Trump put some proposals forward and made some concessions. And of course, it didn't pass because it probably got tied to something else that people couldn't vote for. If we could just isolate it and complete the issue on its own, we probably would have a lot more progress. But, DACA recipients, it is a tough conversation. And I think that we do need to sit down and talk about those who do have that status and how we can work them on a path to citizenship. I have heard from so many people on the trail, look, I came here legally. My mom was a dual citizen between Canada and the US, and she decided to go solely for US citizenship. I remember her sitting at the table and studying for her Constitution test and going to the meetings. And it was a huge day for her. And she was really proud. And I know that people that want to come here for the right reasons and become a US citizen want to do it the right way and are really proud. But now those people have been put to the back of the bus, so to speak, as we try and manage the tens of thousands of illegal immigrants that are coming across the border.
Well, so many people have been put to the back of the bus per se, because that is
Back of the
interesting.
line.
That's back of the line, back of the bus, because we have the forgotten people. We have many communities within the state of Illinois that are kind of getting pushed aside, even within the immigrants who have come through here legally and established citizenship, and now are finding themselves competing with this influx of people coming from the southern borders. I see Chad Benjamin chimed in and said they are trying to turn red counties purple, then blue. Obviously, downstate, you see counties like Peoria, Champaign, and even McLean. Like I said, we are
Even
in a
Piatt
fight.
County is getting some
Yeah.
of that. I mean, I have these conversations all the time because people move to a big city for a job or some other reason, and then they find that these small rural communities have a nice quaint way of living. The cost of living is lower, the housing market might be available, the public schools are amazing, and they are creeping out into these small towns, but then they're bringing their politics with them. And next thing you know, they're running for school board or they're running for county board. And so I think that, was it Chad you said, is absolutely right.
Yes.
And I think if we're not careful, McLean County is going to be the next Cook County.
Yes. Yep. Nope. And you're right. And that's why I believe that the resolution is something that we need to address. What are we going to do? Because it's going to try to infiltrate every county in Illinois. Some counties are a little bit more set up, like a McLean County, a Peoria County, a Tazewell County.
Well, is Bloomington Normal a sanctuary city?
We are a welcoming. Each
welcoming.
city voted. We are a welcoming city. So not only are we welcoming, now we have the bill that was passed by Rauner that says we are a sanctuary state. Therefore, it's just double the layering of just becoming more and more, I guess, out of line with what the Constitution originally said and what we believe, because any of this can be glossed over. And I do want to make sure that my beautiful wife chimed in and said, no illegals are serving in the military. And I think that is the point you were making, that people can serve in the military, but they can't be here illegally at this point. I know there was something that Senator Dick Durbin, our very own Senator Dick Durbin, was trying to push through, where he probably would expand upon what the current status is. Also, the Democrats have had many years of majorities in both houses. They had an ample opportunity to pass a DACA bill. They do not care about illegal immigrants, and that's the point that I believe that I'm starting to take, and maybe you are too, Regan, that a lot of it is, do they truly care about the people that are directly impacted, whether it's the Black community, whether it's the brown community, whether it's whatever community, whether it's the transgender community, whether it's the LGBTQIA plus community. I think I got them all. They don't care. They are strictly exploiting people for political gain.
And we're going to start to see, I hope this year, some of that pushback. I mean, I had a conversation with a couple of members of the Freedom Caucus, and they went up to Chicago yesterday, and they met with immigrants and they met with the Black community and talked about what is really happening. What are people's priorities? Why are they upset? I mean, I think I personally had seen a Black gentleman up north saying, Republicans, where are you? Come talk to us. We have finally kind of seen the light that our Democratic legislators are now pushing us aside for the illegal immigrants, taking our schools, taking our libraries, and I applaud them for going up there, because in this election, Republicans have to seize the opportunity to reach out to our non-traditional voters, because we are on the right side of things, and we are compassionate, and we do want to follow the Constitution, and we want to find the best outcomes for all of our communities, but we just don't do a great job of showing up. I mean, you've got to think about where you can go and where you can say, here I am, ask me questions. Let's talk about what your needs are, what your priorities are. I sat through a wonderful Martin Luther King Gala with the Greater Decatur Black Chamber of Commerce. I was happy to be there. I was happy to see many familiar faces, meet some new ones. And they were, those who were in charge were talking about how they could help introduce me to the community. And then I sat through Congressman Jackson's, speech, most of which I didn't agree with. But, at the end of the day, it's got to be about people. And I think that Republicans are a compassionate people. We are, for, freedoms, and we're for empowerment and being able to, find those jobs and get great educations and all those things. And we just have to do a better job at our messaging and our cohesion and our, going to the people. So that's what I'm doing on the trail.
You're doing it. And I know I told you I'd keep you for an hour. And I appreciate you taking the time. We were late getting on.
I know the sun is setting. I'm turning
I know.
color. I keep trying to do all the light.
Well, I saw you doing that. And Kat Peterson was in studio with me a couple weeks ago for, I think, one of my first show in my new studio. And she had the same effect because it was that 4 to 5 when the sun goes down. And at
need
first,
one of those ring lights. You probably have one. You're looking pretty bright.
I do. And if I had my actual camera, it truly looks like a TV studio. I'm utilizing the Dell computer here, the laptop, to I'm using that computer or that camera, and obviously it's thrown me off. Regan, I'm a creature of habit. I'm at an age where, boy, you've put one little thing in the way, and I'm usually a pretty big stepper, and I can usually jump, but boy, it's tough. I almost gotten into the habit of looking into the camera and talking and doing everything. Now, this was just so different today, but I do appreciate it.
You could have had me fooled.
That's
feel like
right.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah. Well, I want to get you back because there was an area that I believe we need to address, and that's small businesses in the not only in your district, McLean County, Piatt, DeWitt, and Macon, but small businesses in general. I had an opportunity to sit down with a couple small business people in the last couple days. One specifically is just doesn't know where to go because finding viable employees. Yeah, it's just to hear the stories of the demands that people are asking from them as an employer. It is the twilight zone. It's the land of make-believe that we kind of propped up. And ultimately, if we don't have a strong workforce in Illinois, then companies aren't going to want to stay here or relocate here. And I know that we can talk about that at a different time. I don't want to hold you. It is dinner time. I so appreciate you joining me here today at the DPB Show. Obviously, for those that joined us, I do appreciate you. Please go out, like, share, subscribe to all of our different platforms, whether that be Rumble, YouTube, X, or Facebook. The chat is opened. We always look for insight. If you have any questions of Regan, I can pass those on to her. If you have a question that you believe that you would like to get addressed, especially as she is somebody who has truly stood up over the last few years for the people of Illinois, and I know she's going to continue to do that. Regan, thank you, thank you, thank you. We look forward to having you back.
Thank you. I would welcome that conversation about small business, especially having been a small business owner myself. So for those that joined us along the way, thank you for the questions. Thank you for the listening. I am always reachable. My Facebook page is Regan for Illinois. We have a website, reganforillinois.com. My email is regan@reganforillinois.com. And I welcome the opportunity to engage in conversation or come see you. I'm not afraid of hard work and showing up throughout the entire 88th district. So I'd love to come to your business and meet your employees and talk with you firsthand, or celebrate what great work is happening, whether that's in, community organizations or businesses, civil servants here in the 88th district. So please reach out and connect with me. David Paul is doing an amazing job here on his podcast, and I tune in when I can. Sometimes it's great for drive time to be able to listen back and hear what fellow conservatives are wanting to talk about. So thank you for having me, and I'll look forward to coming back.
Well, and I hope to have Regan doing her own podcast when she is in the State House, so she can do her. I call Darren Bailey's the Darren Bailey Daily. I'm gonna have to come up with a Regan Deering Daily.
Ooh, get back to me. Hey, I tell you what, in today's day and age in communication, there's really no excuse for our public officials not to be able to communicate what's going on with their constituents. And it's honestly a responsibility that we have, because we need more engagement in our government, local races, state races, federal races. You need to be informed. You need to hold people accountable. And, to be able to kind of come Facebook Live, or come on a podcast and say, this is what we're doing in the middle of the night, or this is what we're voting on, or I need you to fill out a witness slip. We just have to continue to give people the opportunity to kind of join us on the journey, because we are working for you. Well, and we're going to continue to do that here at the DPB Show and beyond, awesome. Because I think you're going to be a big part of that going forward. The Freedom Caucus, Darren Bailey, we're just getting started. I believe the grassroots movement in Illinois, even though we've taken a little, we've taken it on the chin a couple times. We're still fighting. We're still fighting, and we're going to continue. Hey, I appreciate your fight and your willingness to go out and serve the people of Illinois. Regan, until next time, I bid you farewell, my friend. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, you take care.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up here. I went a little, not really a little long, because we got started a little late, but thank you for continuing to tune in. I will be back on Thursday. I will have that camera working on Thursday. It's been such an amazing ride coming into this new year, but I want you to know that we're not going to give up hope. We're not going to give up on anything. We're continuing to fight. There's just too much at stake. Our children and our grandchildren's future is laying right there for us to do something about. If not us, then who? If not now, when? Hey, I wish you and bid you peace, a peace that surpasses all understanding. Until, let me get it in the camera there. There we go. Peace. Until next time, I bid you farewell. Look forward to seeing you then. Take care.